If only there was a convenient and timely way that the prisoner could be brought back to the United States that wouldn't really inconvenience either nation.
President Bukele at the moment flying from El Salvador to Washington, D.C.
In this clip, John Iadarola takes a look at Jon Stewart's joking Daily Show coverage of the Kilmar Abrego Garcia story, the migrant who's lived in this country for a while and has been deported. If you haven't heard of this story, I don't know where you've been. But really, it comes down to due process. And of course, this administration is trying to make it about what a bad guy this is. Whereas the facts are he's never been accused of a crime. He has no criminal record, etc. So I get to spare you my sort of foaming at the mouth outrage about this because I'm going to let John Iadarola do it for me. But take a look at this with me. I will have opinions to add. Otherwise, I'm going to let John do the talking, Jon Stewart and John Iadarola. And then I want to know what you think in the comments. But let's roll it.
Last night, Jon Stewart dove into the horrifying developing story of the Trump administration's utter refusal to comply with the Supreme Court order to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the U.S. And he focused on one part of it that's been especially bothering me. He played a clip of Trump and the president of El Salvador, Bukele, both refusing to allow Abrego to return, calling him a terrorist in the process, which he is not. And Stewart said, you know, the thing that's like, they're effing enjoying this. And they were both having so much fun. The president of El Salvador is joking too. What, how am I supposed to bring him back? Am I supposed to smuggle a terrorist in? How could I possibly do that? And they're basically ribbing each other over it. As this guy, hopefully, is still alive, but probably not, in this prison. Stewart continued, like the two of them, our president, their president. Okay, I guess we'll just have to let him rot in this effing prison even though he didn't deserve to be there. You guys don't care about this person, but somebody else cares about this person, and you just randomly, with no evidence that you'll show anybody, called him a terrorist. And that's what I just started to think about, something that Maz was just talking about in the show a little bit earlier. He has 3 children. They are terrified that their father is already dead, or that every day that passes where Trump and his regime just twiddle their thumbs rather than doing the thing they could get done in an hour if they wanted to, which is to bring him home, that he could die. He could be stabbed. He could be raped. He could be assaulted. He could just disappear, never to be seen again. And his family and his friends, his coworkers, because he was every bit like a part of the community in Maryland that he was a part of, that any one of us is, and has all the social networks and the ties and all of that, all of them are terrified that he is either already dead or will die. And Trump, he doesn't want to give the libs a win. He doesn't want to bring this guy back. They will let him die in prison rather than admit that they were truly wrong, rather than admit that courts should have power. They will tear our Constitution in half. They will, I'm not going to say, they'll do bodily functions on it, I'll say, just because they don't want to admit that they were wrong. And also because they want to keep pushing this further. They want you to shut up and accept that someone totally innocent could be sent there to die, because that's the necessary step that gets us to U.S. citizens that are criminals being sent. And then U.S. Citizens that aren't criminals, but like tweeted the wrong thing, maybe they can be sent. Maybe an opposition figure looks like they might do well in the Democratic primary next time around, maybe they'll be sent. And we can't get there unless all of you shut the hell up about Garcia. And my fear is that not nearly enough people are actually speaking out about this already, and that tomorrow there'll be less, and a week from now there'll be less, and it'll be a miracle if in a month people are still talking about this, because I don't see the Democrats in Congress doing what they should do. Trump teed it up to them. He didn't even stop at Garcia. He had to brag about sending U.S. citizens. Where are the Democrats ringing the White House and saying it's time for you to take this guy out of office? He is pressuring El Salvador to set up gulags explicitly for U.S. citizens. And what are we hoping? AOC and Bernie will talk about it. And Jon Stewart will do the right thing. He'll say things like, rest easy, Americans. If there's one thing we all know, it's that first they come for the undocumented migrants. And as long as nobody speaks out, they stop. He's going to do that to U.S. citizens. Stewart admits that. I think the hosts of The View are about to get administratively errored. He's sort of joking, but not really. And he even says, I got to tell you, I did not think Trump would get this authoritarian this fast. I really didn't. He sort of acknowledged that he was maybe a little bit too understanding in the beginning. And that frustrated me a little bit with some of his shows, but he understands what's happening now. He understands it, and he could admit that he was sort of wrong. What are the Democrats doing? They're just allowing us to take step after step down the darkest possible path, Maz.
And John, the way that they're getting away with it is they're playing games. So, for example, Pam Bondi in one of those clips was saying that I saw. She was saying, "Well, the Supreme Court told us we have to facilitate his return. That doesn't mean we bring him in, but if he gets to the border, we'll let him in." So they're playing games with an order that came from the Supreme Court 9-0, including all of their lackeys in the Supreme Court, all agreed that this guy needs to be returned. And they play games that keep moving the goalposts, they keep changing the law to fit what they want. And we're at a point now where they're not listening to the Supreme Court. So that gets us into a constitutional crisis as well. And it's more and more dangerous every day. And to your point, where are the Democrats? Why aren't they screaming about this? And you know, we all know that people that are watching Fox News and other news sources from the right are hearing that this guy's a terrorist, this guy's a terrorist, this guy's a terrorist. So I guarantee you, if you polled the followers of those networks, a majority of them would say, oh, don't bring him back because he's a gang member, because they believe it, because this guy did not get he didn't get a chance. By the way, if you really are saying that that's what he is, show him the due process. Let's see it. Show the proof. They don't.
That's it. That's the crux of it right there. There's no due process. So even if this guy were in a gang, even if he were a terrorist, right? Even if he were, they've gone on and said this guy is hardly the father of the year. That is not the point. It's the due process. That's the point, right? So you can't just take somebody and basically disappear them off to another country. I mean, there's so many different layers of this, but the point is due process. If he's a terrorist, if he's even in a gang and you have evidence that this is a bad dude, just show us the evidence, put it through the due process. That's the crux.
Have the proof. They just said something about somebody, which is crazy. And this is the type of stuff that reminds me, during the war on terror, there was times where you had Middle Eastern families or Arab families walking on airplanes, speaking Arabic to one another, and a passenger on the plane would get scared and point it out, and they were escorted off the plane to be interrogated about, what were you guys talking about? Oh, we were talking about lunch. That's what we're talking about. But now we've gotten to the point where this administration can just be the biggest Karen in the world and go, that guy is doing something wrong, and they have the power now to get rid of that guy and keep that guy out. And it is dangerous, and the Democrats need to wake up. That's a great point, John. Great point.
Yeah. So Galfar in the Twitch chat, thank you as always, Galfar, points out that Senator Chris Van Hollen says that he's going to go to El Salvador this week to check on him, and I hope that he does. I love that he's doing that. He should not be alone, by the way. There should be a bunch of other Democrats with him. Now, I say that with the small bit of fear, and I know this. Oh, you're going too far. You're going too far. Could they lock them up? If they did, well, Trump couldn't get them back. I mean, what's he supposed to do? It's a sovereign country. How could he possibly get them back? And I think it's Barely Funky in the chat pointed out the number one person that would be on their list. It doesn't matter you're a U.S. citizen. If you preach hate, who do they say preaches hate against the U.S. more than any other Democrat? I mean, I don't know if it's tomorrow. I don't know if it's a month from now. I don't know if it's a year from now. But you don't think that they're going to try to deport Ilhan Omar? You don't think that they would? You don't think that Fox News would simultaneously ruin their pants, every single one of those hosts, if that happened? We are in. Well, I was going to say we're in territory we've never been in, and I guess in a U.S. sense that's true. But we're very much in territory that other societies have been in. Maybe we could learn something from that, so that we don't go even further. Thank you, Senator Chris Van Hollen. I want AOC there. I want a bunch of people. I want a bunch of senators to go with him. Bring as much attention as possible.
That's the thing, though, is it is a real danger. Once you leave U.S. soil, it's a different game. And we can't let fear This is what they want. They want us to be afraid, and they want us to comply out of fear and hand them the power. The problem is this administration is doing stuff that is unconstitutional, that is authoritarian, and they are playing all these games while they continue to work on eroding the checks and balances. And the Democrats don't have any real power right now, other than to call it out and make noise and draw attention to it. What it's ultimately going to take, I fear, is the population of America, taking to the streets and demanding our country back. Let me know what you think in the comments.